what is all this noise coming through my microphone here? This is why people hang these wires. Because they're broken. Okay. So if you came looking for radio noise, music today, you have come to the wrong place. There has been a series of attacks that have gone across the East Coast, and nobody really quite knows what to do about it. We've received little or no instructions, social media exploding, and we've just basically, from pretty much every radio station I know, at this point I think it's national, that every radio station has got together and is literally sharing information. This is almost like AP 2.0, and try to get the information out there so that everybody will know what to do. And there still isn't enough information out there to really know what to do. The instruction we've received has been pretty straightforward of stay where you are. If you're in an area that's been having problems, but stay inside your house. Don't leave unless you absolutely have to. There's been people that have already gone out and collected a ton of food and other things, just getting whatever they need to basically have some kind of long haul stay that would happen in a situation like this. But it's been very active and very dynamic. And the truth is we don't know all the areas that have basically had things happen. The news has been coming in at this point so fast that it's very difficult to get an angle on it or get a handle on it. We do know that Pennsylvania seems to be the most affected, and that has gone over to Ohio and other areas such as Columbus, and they also have some events that are happening in Atlanta. There are different areas in the Northeast, and we're not really sure. I haven't seen anything from bigger places like New York or Boston or areas like that. I don't think we've heard anything from Richmond, Virginia. But that doesn't mean that people in those areas are completely out of the loop, if you will. It just means that we haven't heard any word from it. And people have been using some pretty prolific or prophetic words with this. The ones that I've heard is things like cities have fallen to this. And the truth is we don't have the full details to it. We do know that obviously if things are in lockdown, that's not good. If we're being told to stay at home, if there's been a stay-at-home order from different areas, and when we get those things, those are important. So you want to know what those are. But the thing is we've had these other events happen, and they have been of a level where you've had concerns. If anybody's ever been in areas that have had basically protests or any event that things get out of hand, I think of California many times when I hear that kind of thing, that happens. Things get out of control, people get ahead of it, we take the necessary steps and actions that we need to get ahead of them, and I think that's just another thing that we have here. We have something that happened. Unfortunately, it's not like a protest, it's not like a riot, if you will, but in the same respects, it is a riot. It's almost like going into a bad area or bad neighborhood, and there are certain things that are happening in certain areas, and I think that's a key point here to kind of take with people that I don't think people are understanding, is this is not some global thing. It's not happening everywhere. They're just certain areas that it's happening in. And I guess when you hear the word sickness, and some people out there have gotten a little crazy using that word, that they hear the word sickness and they take it back and say, we need to get ahead of that, or we need to go out and buy bread, or it's like it's a snowstorm or something. And that's, in certain areas, I'm sure that's a good idea, but use your judgment on this. Like, don't just go out and be hyperbolic about it. It's okay to sit a little bit and kind of figure out where you are or what's going on. And that's, I think, that's why media has been so forthright in coming together and doing what we did. We saw another event like this, for instance, on 9/11, when all the channels came together for about I would say it was about 12 hours of the day of where nothing else was being televised except for the attacks and exactly what was going on and how to get ahead of it. So, as if you've noticed, there are certain areas. So, if you lived in Tennessee, Kentucky, South Carolina, North Carolina, Massachusetts, New York, Maine, especially New Hampshire, Vermont, you're not going to see anything. In fact, you're probably, hopefully, glued by the TV right now to kind of figure out what's going on and try to get an idea of where this coverage is taking us. In other words, what is going to be the next steps? What's those areas that are going to be of concern? Is there some way you can help those areas? And that's something that people haven't, I don't think, have seen as an activity they can do. In other words, there are ways you can help people. And there are ways you can get educated about the situation. I understand a lot of times now they're telling people to really stay away. But in the same vein, I'm sure that there are people out there that doctors, police officials, first responders, civil defense guys, this kind of thing is well needed right now to get ahead of whatever issues that are going on. And if you have those performance-based things, I'm sure there's going to be something out there available for you that they probably already know exactly who to contact, who to get in touch with, how to get involved. And potentially move into these areas to help people who are sick, who are having these issues, to make sure that when it's all over, we have a positive thing that happens and people come together. And that's important. So, okay, we got something here. It looks like, wow, we've been waiting for this for a while now. So time check right now, 11 to 11:15 right now, I think it is about. So we've been waiting for this all night and all day, and a lot of things with the government announcements or any kind of official wording has not transpired. We haven't even heard any governors, but it looks like they're going to be coming out right now with some sort of announcement or some sort of press conference release here. So let's do that, and we will be right back.
So first, I want to thank everyone that came out today to be involved in this last-minute press conference. I can assure you the information we'll be discussing here is of the utmost importance. So if everyone is ready, we'd like to get started. For the record, my name is Aldo Sauer, and as you know, I am the Secretary of Health and Human Services. It is my job to assess threats to health and well-being of the American people. Last night at around 10 p.m. Eastern Time, reports of assaults by unarmed citizens began to take over media reporting. Social media became inundated with images of the injured. Some areas lost phones, communication, internet, and even power. By morning, the reports had taken over most of all the reporting nationwide, while services had been restored to local areas. Some reporters have responded to areas that saw the most activity, and some we have not heard back from. The first question on everyone's mind is the level of the situation we are currently in, and I'm afraid to respond that they are more serious than what the news and social media have reported. The first reports came from outside of Pittsburgh. Police responded to multiple reports of trespassers. These reports became assaults. 2 officers were injured in attacks, one critically, and the city has set up roadblocks and are having issues dealing with sick and injured. Some hospitals have been overrun. Currently, Atlanta has declared a state of emergency. The city has enacted a stay-at-home advisory, and police have been mobilized throughout the city. Further attacks were reported in Columbus, Cincinnati, Ohio, Memphis, Tennessee, Macon, Florida, Miami, Florida, and Detroit, Michigan in varying degrees. We are unaware how extensive the situation may be, so there may even be other areas that have reported incidents that have not been associated as a whole, but still may be involved in the overall. We are continuing to look into those. An hour ago, Japan completely closed their borders. When we asked why, they reported that multiple areas in China may already be under martial law. An infected individual disembarked from a plane this morning coming from Hong Kong and was shot dead by law enforcement. We have no information on any other countries or any other activities, but we're going to do our best to keep you updated on that. Allow me to clarify that we were asked whether martial law would be enacted in these cities, and the answer is no. No military action has ever taken place outside the bounds of civil war. None of that has been enacted on the citizens of the United States, and the president's words were, "It will not happen on my watch." So at current, there is no plan for any inaction of martial law. We do not believe such a move would be necessary at this time. He has stated that governors are quite capable of requesting efforts from National Guard, and he advised requesting assistance to Pennsylvania governors who said it was not needed at this time. So in short, although the situation is very serious, all of our staff have the situation well under control, which is why we ask that people stay out of the areas if possible and report anyone that you see that fits the descriptions we're about to give. Where did this come from? We are not completely sure at this time. The first assessments came from potential water supply contamination, but it's believed that the first infection started with the homeless and potentially drug use. Working directly with CDC and military health officials who specialize in viral warfare, they believe the problem stems from a drug called xylazine. This is a product used with fentanyl, which is a drug that can be absorbed through the skin, breathed in, and it's believed this drug became contaminated with a biological agent of some kind that binds to human physiology and causes severe nerve necrosis, driving the individual completely mad within a few hours of infection. Individuals who are infected will first begin to develop a very high fever, chills, muscle cramps, as well as other flu-like symptoms. At one point during the infection, the person may lose consciousness. At this point, they will lose the ability for rational thought, at which point they will attack anyone in reach. They will not respond to commands and are unable to speak. It's important that if you are ill that you seek medical attention before this secondary phase. If you find someone that is unresponsive or you believe has lost their faculties, you are to avoid them at all costs and contact law enforcement. At this time, we feel that action to assist in these situations are of the utmost importance, and to that end, federal rescue stations are being set up in and around any area that is seeing activity. If you are bitten or injured by an individual you believe is infected, you are to report to these shelters and not hospitals. I repeat, if you are bitten or injured by someone who is infected, it is important to respond to rescue stations where you can receive the care you need. If you have any of the symptoms described above, your best option is to go to your nearest rescue station to receive assistance. What is also important is that everyone stay calm. We are already addressing models of spread and are well within the ability to control and get ahead of the infection if citizens will cooperate with government operations, medical staff, first responders, and local law enforcement. Stay out of areas that have seen activity if you are not currently in an area without activity. If you have been instructed to stay at home, please do so. We would also like to make this clear that we do not suspect this to be a terrorist attack, as some have surmised. Could it be an attack of some kind? We haven't ruled out any possibility, but at this time the priority is addressing the situation at hand, and then we can start to deduce the source of the infection. That's our report at this time. We will be making periodic reporting and enacting emergency media channels to help Osmeter reporting like yourself, keeping up to date in case we're unable to hold press conferences at an acceptable rate. At some point, we will be taking questions from media and from anyone that would like to ask questions. At this time, though, we have a lot of work to do. So our advice at this time is let's all get to it. Thank you guys for showing up. That completes today's press conference. Thank you.
Okay, so that was interesting. I don't know if that really gave us the answers we need in some respects, but I do understand it's going to be helpful to be able to set up some sort of sheltering system for those that have been attacked. And it looks like they are taking action, which is something that a lot of people were kind of worried about, that there wasn't any action taken before. So that's where we stand right now when it comes to these events, and it was very interesting to hear that it was well beyond the scope of what we originally had imagined. I think if we're going to take this into context, we need to come with the idea that this is a very serious situation, but a situation nonetheless that we can control, that we can. I think avoidance in this, especially for anybody who doesn't understand the situation completely, is the best form of work. So if you're going to have an incident where you're in an area that you believe has some problems, I think the best thing to do is going to be to stay away from that, to stay away from areas where things can happen. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and just say, if they're announcing that people who are being bitten are going to be reporting to these areas, I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit crazy here, but I'm thinking that the bites and the scratches are a form of infection. In other words, if you come into contact with somebody, they did say biological agent, and to me biological agent means something living. So we have a drug that has some sort of biological agent in it that's making people sick, and if we take it from that vein, then we must also understand that it's possible that these people are getting sick from this agent and that they're passing it on in some way. And I think the most easiest way to pass on a biological agent of any form would be to say a bite or a scratch or some sort of injury that could happen. Obviously, we don't hear anything airborne. We don't have that. And again, this was an initial press conference. I'm sure there's going to be more down the road to really hammer home what's going to be happening in the near future. I'm hoping that that's going to be more forthcoming now than it will be for later, but we'll see how that works out. But for now, like I said, those are your instructions. If you're in an area right now that has some sort of effect, you do have a shelter system that's been put in place where people can respond. I just don't, it's the wording for this to me tells me that hospitals do not have the ability to fight this infection. They don't have the ability to make this better for anybody that's involved in it. And that's kind of, in some respects, that's frightening, but it's not, it shouldn't be unexpected. We're dealing with something, I think, that is brand new. Thankfully, it is not an attack of some kind, but the idea that it's not just happening here. So the cause may not be something in Pennsylvania itself. It may be something that has been, I guess the word is, immigrated to the U.S. in a way that would be affecting those around you. So it may not be from here, it may be from someplace else. And I think that if it did anything, it came and developed in silence, in secret. And now it's here in front of us, and we have to deal with it. But that's the thing that is most difficult about this, is there's so many angles that we have to cover here that are new and brand new. And I think that's really what's happening. Is usually when you have something, if you say it's a fire, we become accustomed to the fire. In other words, to fire, stay away from the fire. Bring the water hoses, you're fine. If it was something terrorist or oriented, then you have some sort of, we can fight back, we can engage, we know what to do, we're very familiar with it. With this situation, we have nothing familiar to deal with here. There's no point of reference. There's no point in your life where there was any sort of, attack. We don't even have the words to explain it. Like, in other words, if I said there's a fire drill, you'd know what the fire drill is. If I said, there's a car crash or a person's having a heart attack, you'd have a general idea of what to do. With this, we don't have a point of reference. We don't have a point of view that would allow us to say, oh, just do this. Well, we're stuttering and stammering, and the information is coming in is so useless. It just really is short and little blips of information, and then you realize when you get in the situations of something happening that you are totally unprepared for what's happening. You're totally unprepared for the situation. And I think this is the problem with the instructions, especially from the government. And that's, I'm going to say this, and I don't know if my producer's going to get mad at me for saying it, but everything is done from a standpoint of safety. It's done from the idea of protecting the person that's involved with it. So what ends up happening is now we have people who are attacking, and we have people, I mean, let's be honest, potential friends, potential family get sick, they come after you, what do? And we're put in a world where you can't attack anybody. You can't, your job is to avoid, like it's a school ground, and you now have lost the ability to defend yourself. And if you've lost the ability to defend yourself, this just means that this situation, I think, in my personal opinion here, is that it's just going to grow out of control. We have to if we're ever going to get ahead of this right now, I think that the idea of just having this safety ideology needs to be thrown out the window. But the worst part about it, especially from what we just heard, is that I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is going to be here's your wet nap. We're going to take care of it while you guys just run and hide someplace. And I think for people in these areas, I don't know where they would run and hide. There comes a point when you can't just stay at home 24/7 and have good results. So they're either going to get ahead of this and do it really fast, or I would say in a week's time, or maybe even less, there are going to be people that are going to have to take action to understand that there's nobody that's going to be coming to rescue them. And it's not the first time I've ever heard that lingo. And it's kind of frightening to be in an incident like this where it's hammered home that the idea of what we thought before was safety was that we were really never safe, were we? We were always in some sort of harm's way, and all we've done is just lie to ourselves to say that we were safe, and now we're getting the wake-up call. And that's to bring back 9/11. That was our wake-up call back then. Now we have a wake-up call now to say, you know what, maybe this safety thing isn't the right way of doing things. Maybe this way of life we've had where other people take care of us may not be the best form of protection, the best form of being who we are. And here we are with, I don't know if that was like a 7 or 8 minute announcement, that I look over and I say, I didn't get anything out of that. I got, go in my room, hide, and wait for it to all blow over. And I just don't think that's going to be an option. Even if it does get prepared and does get that, I don't think these people that are in these certain areas are going to be up for that. And now basically we're here, we're having it's closing in on us. So how long before we start seeing it to the point of, like, at this point we're already having difficulties covering it? What if I'm trying to cover it at the same time where I have somebody outside my door banging on the door saying they want to come in and they want to harm everybody here for no reason whatsoever? When does that happen? When are we at that point? And if we are, who do we call to help us? And I just don't think there's anybody to call. And I think that's the biggest problem we have right now, is that we're getting instructions, we're getting one useless piece of information after the other, and the next step is to, we keep asking who's going to come save us. Nobody's coming to save us, and it's not happening. And there's going to have to be something that's done down the road. I don't know who's going to do it. I don't know if I'm the person to do it. I don't know if, I definitely don't think, my job is to sit behind a microphone all day and tell everybody exactly what's going on. And I feel that if I'm going to do this due diligence that I need to say those things, and then admit that, maybe I'm not the guy. Maybe my job is to sit on this mic and just be the guy that says this is how it happens, and stop being. That's the other thing I've learned the hard way in the last couple of days here, or last couple hours, if I will, is that that maybe I judged a little bit more than I should have. Maybe I should have put on somebody else's shoes for 5 minutes and said, okay, this is it. And I think this has been the wake-up call. And I think it's a wake-up call for everybody. And I hope we're learning our lesson, because if we don't learn our lesson, there's going to be, I think there's going to be problems for everybody, and it's not going to be a good thing. This may not be something, we have to come to terms with the idea that they may not be able to stop this. They may not be able to get ahead of it. And if they can't get ahead of it, even with them telling us they are, I tend to wonder, but if they can't get ahead of it, what are our options? So we'll have to talk about that in a second. So we're going to go to a break, and I will be right back.
This is a public service announcement provided by Civil Defense Initiative. If you live within the affected zone, the following emergency information has been provided for your safety. At this time, you are asked to shelter in place. Only leave your premises unless absolutely necessary. Only report to work if you are an essential worker. Emergency response and medical services have been limited to critical care only. Do not contact emergency services or medical facilities unless your condition presents an immediate threat to life. If you are required to leave your premises, it is important to avoid anyone you feel may be sick or does not respond to verbal instructions. Do not engage anyone you are unsure may be sick. Leave the scene immediately. Keep hands washed at all times. Thank you for your attention. Stay tuned to this and emergency channels for further information as it becomes available. This has been an announcement from Civil Defense Initiative.